Arizona is now clearly back to being the preeminent power on the West Coast. And Tommy Lloyd obviously has a juggernaut here at Arizona. He's bringing in players left and right, and it's a nice combination of domestic players, 5-star kids, international developmental players. Arizona, it speaks for itself what he's doing. UCLA is squarely in the toilet under Mick Cronin. They are not recruiting well. I don't know how you're going to really get players there going forward. And Gonzaga, while still solid, is not the Gonzaga that Tommy Lloyd left. Arizona is at the very top of the West Coast pecking order, and I don't see that going away for a while, Sheer.
Yeah, that's not changing. And I think good proof of that is look at the recruiting class that Arizona is bringing in, right? And UCLA is going to struggle in the Big Ten. And I don't think the Big Ten is that good. I'm not saying that's why they're going to struggle, but that game, you have a bunch of teams that could play UCLA basketball and do it better than them, right? They're used to playing the low-scoring physical games and all that, and they're going to recruit at a higher level than UCLA. It's not going to be easy anymore, and I'm really curious to see how UCLA pivots. Like, Cronin has a very big offseason. He has to decide how many guys am I going to run off, and if I run him off, who am I going to replace him with? Because if he runs off dudes and he can't replace them, they're going to be just as bad as they are this year.
This is a make or break offseason, I believe, for Mick Cronin, because here's the thing. And we're going to get back to Arizona here and about how they're pretty much, they're going to be the preeminent power. But people can put up with somebody being a jerk if he's winning games. You can't put up with you being a jerk if you're not winning games. And like you said, too, this is a barren roster that he's bringing back next year, because I don't see a lot of upward mobility. And like you said, you look at some of the players Arizona's bringing in. Carter Bryant out of Southern California, Jamari Phillips out of Modesto. These are the kind of guys that Mick Cronin, quite frankly, should be able to get at UCLA, especially coming off a Final Four, a Sweet 16 runs. And what you're also finding out, too, is the difference between Tommy Lloyd and Mick Cronin. Both of these guys inherited loaded rosters from their predecessors. Look at what Tommy Lloyd's doing now with his entirely new roster, all of his players. Look at what Mick Cronin's doing. One of these is very sustainable. The other one is not.
Yeah, well, and here's a good example. Like you mentioned, like there used to be a time in the UCLA-Arizona rivalry where, as good as Arizona was recruiting, Carter Bryant would have never gotten out of Southern California.
Right.
Wouldn't have happened. And you take a look. So what happens is now, again, you're pivoting. So UCLA thought they were in it for a 7-1 center, top 5 player. And they're saying, no, we're in it. Well, no, you're not. He committed to Duke a day after the article came out, because you're not beating Duke in a nationwide recruitment. You're not going back east and beating Duke or Carolina or whatever it may be. So once you lose your Southern California ties and you go away from that as a UCLA coach, you're done. Like, you're just done. It's the beginning of the end. And whether you try to go international, I get it. It's a hot thing to do in college basketball. The difference is Tommy Lloyd knows how to approach it, knows what he's looking for in a player and how to handle it. Mick Cronin is completely new. And once Mick Cronin lost, I forget the assistant name, the European assistant who went to the Raptors, that hurt him, because now you lost your international whisper of sorts. And so now you're recruiting based off what?
And look what UCLA was at its best under Howland. You had a Jordan Farmar, obviously Southern California, Darren Collison, Southern California, Aaron Aflalo, Southern California. Heck, I could even throw Lorenzo Mata from Southgate.
Yeah, the best players that went to UCLA were from California.
Exactly. And then you had Kevin Love sprinkled in there. But then also, let's look at Gonzaga. Gonzaga does not scare anyone anymore. Gonzaga is a solid team, but it is not a top 3 to 5 level team. And I was talking with a few people about this, and I think a lot of that is Tommy Lloyd. Look at some of these players that are on this Arizona roster right now, and that they would probably be in one way, shape, or form. I don't know if they'd be at Gonzaga, but they're those type of players. And yeah, Gonzaga's solid, but this is not the team that was running off a couple Final Fours and was competing for national championships. Just from a talent perspective alone, Arizona has leapfrogged them.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mark Few. I think people give him a rough deal with the not winning a title or whatever, because it's hard to win a national title. But when Tommy was there, it was pretty well known in recruiting circles and all that he really, really made that thing go in a very big way. And that is why when the Arizona job opened, his name popped up right away because it was the deal where eventually someone's going to hire this dude. Like, he's too successful at Gonzaga. Eventually, he's going to want to leave Gonzaga and coach his own team. And there's so much recruiting success. Like, the guys that landed that Gonzaga, like the Sabonis, the Rui Hachimura, the guys like that.
You're Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah, they all mentioned Tommy, right? They all love Tommy. They still come back here sometimes.
He was Chet's lead recruiter.
Right. So it's like eventually, like, when a guy like that leaves, you're going to hurt a little bit, right? And Gonzaga's done fine, but I agree. Like, the two best players on their team are transfers, and they're right. So it's like they're going to have to replace them, and now you wonder about the whole conference situation and where that's going with realignment. And right now, it is a kind of a perfect storm for Arizona basketball.